Welcome back to the Means Report. We appreciate you staying with us as we move from the doctor to the lawyer. We're going to talk about hot legal issues with Austin Jackson, a local attorney who specializes in wrongful death and personal injury, knows a lot about the legal profession, and is here to explain it to us lay people. Austin, thanks for what you do and thanks for being here.
Brad, thanks for having me.
I want to talk about a bunch of topics, time permitting. I want to start, though, with something that I think impacts all of us, at least those who drive automobiles, and it's car insurance. You hear people say, well, I've got enough insurance to be legal. I'm saving money, but I'm legal. What does that mean to have enough coverage just to be legal? And what kind of coverage do you recommend when it comes to car insurance?
That's a great question. I think something that everybody needs to think about. So first off, in both Georgia and South Carolina, $25,000 in bodily injury coverage per person is what is required by both states. So that's a 25, 50, 25 policy is what most people in the insurance industry call that.
25, 50, 25.
So 25 is per person up to a total of 50. If there are 5 occupants in the vehicle, then $50,000 is going to have to be figured out to be divided between the 5 occupants that may be injured. And then another 25 is for the property damage. And that's all on the liability side. So if you hit me and you have to carry 25, 50, 25, and that's what I might be able to go after you for unless you have other personal assets.
Okay, gotcha. All right, that makes sense. So do you find that most insurance companies have that product? Is it something that you should only go to certain companies for, or everybody offers that?
Everybody's going to offer that for the most part. Now, what we are seeing is that it is very easy to be injured beyond that $25,000 mark in terms of a medical bill.
Right.
If you're hurt real bad, you go to the emergency room, that $25,000 is probably going to be eaten up in the first 10 to 30 minutes. So what then, right? And so really what the legislatures are putting the burden on us now that inflation has sort of caught up with those type limits is putting burdens on, people who get hit to sort of purchase insurance to cover them in the event that they are underinsured from the person who hit them. Does that make sense?
It does.
So, we recommend buy. It's not that expensive, and we recommend buy as much as you can because, surgeries these days are costing hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, but you're right. You're right. You can hit those big numbers in the early part of your hospital stay.
That's right. And not to mention, plus or minus 10 to 12% in Georgia and South Carolina are uninsured drivers. People are driving with no insurance. So, it gets a little bit technical as to which state calls which thing what, but underinsured and uninsured, let's just assume that's the same thing in terms of insurance. And so, you need to be covering yourself if somebody hits you with either nothing or not enough.
What do insurance companies look like? What's it look like to deal with them behind the scenes? When an incident occurs, do they say, Austin, tell me how much to write the check for? Or do they say, I will go to court on behalf of my insurance company if that's what it takes? Is it tough or easy to deal with them?
That's why people like me have a job.
Yeah.
Each situation is different. Each scenario is different. Each case is different. There are certain situations where it's quite easy to get a certain amount of money from an insurance company. And then there's certain situations that, it's going to be quite difficult and it could take years. So, it's up to people like me to analyze each situation. I would say more often than not, insurance carriers are going to be difficult to deal with, even your own. Even if you bought the underinsured coverage and somebody hits you and they don't have enough or they don't have any, and you have a serious injury and maybe you have $1 million in coverage, I would expect a fight on your hands for a substantial amount of money.
What do you think about and I wanted to talk about kind of artificial intelligence and technology as we move through this interview, and I see all of these cars that either can drive themselves or at the very least can park themselves. That seems sort of scary and sort of dangerous. Are you seeing anything on that front in your line of work yet? Any problems?
Well, which do you want to talk about? The artificial intelligence or do you want to talk about self-driving cars?
Let's do AI in a minute. Let's do self-driving cars and your takes on those.
I think that they will come in time. Elon Musk thinks they will be here very, very soon. And obviously, I don't think that they're going to be ubiquitous in the amount of time that he thinks that they will, but everybody's got to have a goal, right?
Right.
So, I rode maybe 2 weeks ago in a Tesla that had full self-driving capability, and it drove us around town and parked us, and it was a bit scary. But I think that eventually the tech will be there. but I don't think it's anywhere in the next 10 plus years to be able to be a situation where we literally don't own a car and cars are just constantly going around picking people up. Or if you do own a car, it's completely self-driving. It's hard to replace a human in the cockpit.
Yeah, but Austin, how much trust should we put in those vehicles? You described your trip around town in a Tesla. Was the driver putting his or her complete trust in that vehicle? That, to me, is the scary part.
You need to be ready to take over. But what's probably more applicable today is the fact that probably about 90% of cars that are being produced have some sort of stopping capability in the event that the driver is not paying attention. And I study crash statistics, as you'd probably expect, and we are seeing, at least this year, a flat effect year over year in terms of the first quarter of this year in crashes in Richmond and Columbia County. It could be just because the weather's been cooler and people aren't out as much. Mm-hmm. But it also could be that, a few cars a month aren't crashing because the brakes are being applied for them, and the common rear end collision is not happening quite as much as it did 5-10 years ago, certainly before COVID.
All right, let's switch to AI now. It's in the news every day, whether it's a college kid using it to try to write a paper or whether it is something bigger than that. What do you think about the use of AI in the field of law? And could we be getting to the point where we speak something into our device and become our own lawyer because artificial intelligence tells us what to do?
Whew, what a topic, right?
I mean, that seems also scary.
I mean,
like
don't you want to go sit on a jury and have a computer argue to you?
It feels like we're coming to that, though. It does.
I think that it is here already from the perspective that certain big law firms in big cases are using AI to review voluminous amounts of documents.
All right.
One lawyer in New York is facing discipline by the State Bar of New York currently because he plugged everything into ChatGPT. It was a case against an airline. He had an injured person that was injured by an airline in New York that was, I think, going into JFK or LaGuardia or whatever. And bottom line is he had a complaint drafted or a pleading drafted to the court that he plugged into ChatGPT, and it spit out a bunch of fake cases.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of garbage in, garbage out with AI. I think of it like a pilot using an autopilot. You need to be there as an attorney to sort of, but could it be a great thing for a first draft in a few years? Just like, you might use it for a first draft for a thank you note.
Sure.
But you're not going to, or a best man speech or something like that. But you are probably not going to take everything that it says, and you need to fact check what you're saying because, he didn't, and it spit out a bunch of fake cases.
Yeah, let's keep the human element present as much as possible. Let me hit some other stuff real quick. Do you do slip and fall cases?
Believe it or not, our longest running case that just got a favorable decision from the Court of Appeals of Georgia and is now potentially going up to the Supreme Court of Georgia, it turns 6 this year, involves a death of a gentleman that tripped and fell in a parking lot. And that happened in July of 2017. And so yes, to answer your question, we do those type of cases, and they can, a lot of people probably think, oh man, slip and fall, that's not that significant. But a lot of my most significant cases actually are slip and fall cases.
Well, to the business owners out there then, Austin, how much responsibility do they bear for keeping their premises safe? And when does that responsibility meet common sense, where there's a hole in my parking lot, you see it, don't step in it?
Right. So I'm a business owner too, and I am constantly keeping my head on a swivel as I walk in and out of my building and in and around my building to make sure that it's hazard free. I think if you are using your common sense and you're just being sort of, I would say, a defensive owner, like a defensive driver, then you're probably doing everything right. However, if you let something go for a certain amount of time, whether it's a spill of water on a floor or a hole in your parking lot that is there and is hard to see, and somebody gets hurt, even if you don't even have knowledge of it, potentially, liability could be attached to you because of, what's called constructive knowledge. It's been there long enough that you should have known about it.
I cannot let this interview end without asking you about these legal commercials, these lawyer ads. Why are they everywhere, and do they work? Do they help you?
Well, as being somebody who runs ads on your air, yes, they do. And that's the reason why they're so pervasive. It's unfortunate, in my opinion, that people have taken them to a certain extreme and made them unprofessional, in my opinion. We try to make them as tasteful as possible. But the bottom line is it is free speech. There was a Supreme Court case in the United States in the late 70s that said, lawyers should be able to advertise. And I think that that's right. I mean, why should our speech, rights be infringed upon? However, I think that there's a line that, you can do it in a nice way. And I think that what I hear in my office is that, people are choosing us because of the way that we choose to advertise, as opposed to a lot of other lawyers who don't live here and, do things a little bit different.
15 seconds. What's the Bar Association have to say about this? Do they tell you all to just keep it classy, but yes, exercise your free speech?
There are certain rules and regulations as to what you can and cannot say, and you have to put, if you use an actor, let's say, in your ad, you have to put actor portrayal at the bottom. There's lots of fine print in those ads if you look at them. So.
Well, this has been extremely informative, and just as with Dr. Henson, we probably should have allotted more time because there's so many topics to talk about. Thank you for being here, Austin Jackson. I appreciate it. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Brad.
Absolutely. Austin Jackson, our guest today on the Means Report. How can we get more great guests like the ones we've seen today? We will show you how to keep in touch with the Means Report when we come back.